Yo, what is going on? How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the Risen Fallen podcast. I am your host, Mark Hendrickson. If you're brand new to this show, then what you can expect is open and authentic conversations about things like mental health, self-development, and how to get your life moving in the right direction. If you're not feeling good about where you are right now, at least having the confidence knowing that you're moving one step in the right direction, 1% closer to the person that you'd like to be, the life you'd like to lead, who you'd like to surround yourself with, who you'd like to see in the mirror. That's really what it comes down to, is making sure that you feel good every single day, or at least, sometimes throughout the day, at least once a day, you feel good. That is really what this whole podcast is truly about. At least having, I like to have those types of conversations where people listen to them and they think, fuck, I've felt that, I thought that, I think that currently, and I've never been able to put it into words, never been able to, or at least hear someone else say it so I don't feel as alone. That has literally been my goal since the very first time I started recording anything, really, honestly. That's what this was all about, because I had that experience, and if I could be involved in giving somebody else that experience, or at least being involved in that experience myself, that I feel like is kind of what this calling truly is. And so, how is everybody doing today? If that resonates with you, I hope that you are doing well. If that doesn't resonate with you, then I hope you get some human connection, because you need it. And what is going on? It is Monday. It is a beautiful day. It is an exciting week. We're leading into, I've got a wedding coming up pretty soon here, so I'm pretty stoked on that. Dude, this year's flying by. June is flying by. And the weather is slowly getting better. It actually cooled down quite a bit this week in Vancouver, and so I'm excited to see what this next week has in store for us. And so, how is everybody doing today? I saw like a thing on Instagram recently that really pissed me off. I'm sure you guys maybe get this on your algorithm all the time as well, where two people are talking, words are exchanged, and all of a sudden, fight breaks out. We've all been there. We've all seen it. But there's like kind of this weird thing about, words becoming violence, or this idea that, when somebody says something, we have the authority to, try and get them fired, try and get them banned, try and get them attacked, try and get them doxxed. And obviously there's like laws that prohibit that kind of behavior online. I don't even have, in Canada, we have very different laws in terms of like freedom of expression than what they have in the States. But even, in the States, where it is probably one of the most quote unquote free places to speak your mind, depending on what you talk about, obviously that comes into play. And, but even then, you can't, this idea of like a call to action, a call to violence, those types of things are not protected. That's the type of thing where it's like, no, you can legally be held, responsible for that. And in many ways, you'll have to face those repercussions. But I'm talking more about like this idea where like people are just like talking shit online. They're saying things, and they're facing like real world repercussions from that, whether they're being, like I said, fired from their job, or sometimes even just like hit, like literally attacked, like physically assaulted for saying words, which is crazy to me. And, we've seen this in the past with like protests and, where like people are there, they're out there peacefully protesting, saying whatever they, feel, whatever they believe. And all of a sudden someone starts assaulting them. Someone starts to, violently, like maybe try and remove them from the situation, whatever it is. And honestly, personally, like I find that disgusting. I think most people probably can. I think that we should be in a place where you can say what you think, or maybe even sometimes what you don't think, if you're trying to do it in maybe a funny way, I guess. But You should be able to just say things. You should be able to, especially things that you think, especially things that you actually do believe. And I don't think that words can be constituted as violence or justified. Or I don't think words justify violence. I think that that's a gross place to go because, what might be an acceptable thing for you to hear or say or whatever might be unacceptable for somebody else. And you're kind of subjecting yourself in the future, depending on whoever is stronger than you or tougher than you or in a higher position than you. Now, all of a sudden, they can kind of, commit violence on you because of something that you've said or, and that might be a world that you want to go down. But, I've just read so many novels that I just don't really think that it really is. And so, when we're living in this world, whether it's online, whether it's in person, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whatever situation you're in, it's important to understand that other people's words, other people's, those types of things, they they really should have no control over the way that you behave. You have your own core values. You have your own personal beliefs. You have your own way of conducting yourself. And personally, and again, if it comes down to brass tacks, do I think that violence is wrong? No, I think it's a tool. I think it's one of those contextual things. If somebody is, threatening you or threatening your family, threatening an innocent person, I definitely think that obviously you have to address the situation. But when it comes down to, somebody saying words, I don't think personally that is a good reason to put yourself or other people in physical harm. You're robbing that person of safety because they've made some fucking noises with their mouth hole, with their little hole, their mouth, right? And so it is something that interesting because when you come down to, and I guess maybe more a relatable conversation for people to understand is like the relationships that we have in our day-to-day lives, because this idea of like the heightened extreme emotion maybe doesn't happen as common for people, but sometimes when you're just at home and someone's got a problem, whether it's your parents, whether it's your siblings, whether it's your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, they might come to you and they might say something to you. You might not like it. You might not like the way what that means they believe. You might not like the way that they said it. You might not like the words they chose to use. You might not like all of those types of things. And really what that says is more about you than it does about them. Because when somebody else's words hurt you, what it says about them maybe is maybe they make a joke out of context. Sometimes people don't always mean what they say. Sometimes people don't always intend to have that kind of, effect or reaction from you. They might literally not even mean what they're saying. They're just saying it because they think it's funny. They, whatever it is. Sometimes people do deliberately use their words to try and, provoke a reaction or to retaliate or to, just evoke some sort of an emotional response if they can't get one. And what that says, like I said, about them is that hurt people. They hate something, internally about themselves. They've got some sort of issue going on, some unhealed trauma, or a lot of the time, like I said, it's some sort of extreme lack of awareness that they've got going on. You see this a lot with people that maybe used to be addicted to substances like drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. They quit that thing, and then whenever they see someone else do it, they demonize them. They think, oh, this is a bad thing, and it's like really, it's something that you fail to have some sort of humility or sympathy or empathy for other people. You see their flaws, and it's a lot easier to point out flaws in other people than it is to really just be honest about who we are as ourselves. And it kind of gives us the moral high ground of saying, oh, that's a wrong thing to do, without addressing, like, I could easily be that person. You know what I mean? Again, you see it with people that, maybe they were very fat before and they lose a lot of weight, and then they look at other people and they go, why can't you just stop eating? And it's like, dude, at a time that was you. And so then you see this a lot with people where there's something that they have going on internally that they haven't fully solved. They haven't fully admitted to themselves. They haven't fully realized this, or they're trying to actively not admit or realize this. And so they project it onto others. And sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Like I said, sometimes they just see other people just behaving and they want to call that out. Right? And so that's kind of what it says about other people, if their words hurt you. But what does it say about you? Also, the exact same thing about unhealed trauma. Because if somebody walks by me and they say, oh, your hair is purple, I know it's not true. It doesn't bother me. I think that person's probably crazy, whatever. Like, I don't know what they're on. But I know it's not true, so it doesn't really bother me. But if they say something about me, hey, I don't even know, like, they say something about me, or they say something about my family, whatever it could be, it might invoke some unhealed trauma, something that I think actually is true, that I actually am offended by. And the next thing that says about you is how privileged we really are, that we have the mental bandwidth, the emotional bandwidth, the the attention and the energy to give to something like that. And this is going to kind of rub some people the wrong way, but let's just put life into context for us, right? There's people out there that are in debt, losing their homes. There's people out there that are strung out on drugs on the streets. There's people out there that are dealing with actual violence. There's people that are dealing, that are out there being assaulted, in different ways. And our biggest complaint is, oh, this person said this. This person made this noise and it hurt my feelings. How privileged of a life that we must have, where a sound that comes out of someone's face hole is what we're complaining about. What it really does put your life into perspective. It says a lot about you, like the types of things that you complain about and how often you complain about things in general. But that's another story in and of itself. Like I said, it is kind of just the only time that we hear somebody's words and we get genuinely offended by them is when we have a complete lack of understanding about their viewpoint, or we are just so self-righteous about our viewpoint that we think by default everyone should share it. And again, dude, this is a thing that I struggle with in my own life, in my relationship. If I have somebody, even with Teddy, my fiance, like if she comes to me and she says, certain, if she brings up something I could improve on, something I did right, something I did wrong, whatever it is, a lot of the times I instantly start to say, defend what I said. Oh, I didn't say that. I said this, or I'll say, that didn't happen, or, I'll just try and kind of defend my own viewpoint, defend the way I feel, defend the way I think, because it does almost feel as though, that is like the only threshold before violence is our words and our thoughts, our words and our opinions. That is the separator between the physical and the verbal. And so it does almost feel like an attack on our character. Like it's like, because it seems as though when someone disagrees with us and we're offended by it, it seems as though, they might think that maybe I'm dumb. They might think maybe I came to this conclusion because I'm not smart, or I don't have good intentions, or I don't, whatever it is. So it's easy to feel like you're being attacked, or it's easy to feel like, anything like that. If you get that, it does become like a real fight or flight response. And I think that the only real way to overcome any time where two people are having a heated debate, two people are having an argument, somebody's antagonizing another person, somebody's doing it on purpose, whatever it is realize that nobody likes being lectured to. It's fucking annoying. And so if you realize that you have a disagreement with somebody, an issue going on in a social setting, whether it's a relationship, a friend, someone online, whatever it is, if you genuinely, like, when you have those types of moments where you're like fight or flight is really kicking in, you really have two options. The first one is just terminate contact, terminate relationship. Like, there's this, like, I think it's Dr. Seuss, there's this great quote where it's like, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter won't mind, or something like that, along those lines. I'm not trying to plagiarize or whatever, but it's one of those things where it's like, dude, if you have this kind of friction going on and you don't think that it's worth it to save that kind of thing, just terminate the relationship, get rid of it. But if you do want to be able to overcome these things, your other option is to have a conversation that allows you to understand their position better, their thought process better, understand how they came to that conclusion, understand why they feel the way they do, why they think the way they do. And that comes from asking questions to understand, not asking questions to get them in a gotcha, not telling them what they should think, not telling them what you think, not telling them, how they should do their research or how they should speak or how they should express themselves. Truly, if you want to overcome differences of opinion or anything like that, all you can do is ask questions to understand, because you might not agree at the very end of it, but when you actually do, if you come from a sincere, genuine place of, I'm going to ask questions to understand, what that allows you to do is to humanize their point of view, humanize their perspective, and understand, okay, I could come to that conclusion. If I went through this experience, if I had this thing going on, if I, had this problem in my life, I could really honestly see how somebody could think that way or feel that way. And, it just humanizing them in that way, and their thoughts and their opinions and other viewpoints, will put you in a better position in life. Like I said, you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to feel the same way that they feel or think the same way that they think. But all you can do is understand why. And I think that will obviously put us in a better position in life, whether it's in a romantic relationship, whether it's in, just dealing with random people on the street. This will allow you to not allow the world around you to control how you conduct yourself. If you wake up in the morning intentionally going around picking fights, picking arguments, or wanting to have problems, wanting to have things to stress about in life, you can do that, and it'll be pretty easy to fulfill that self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you wake up and you choose, I don't want to be in an aggressive situation today. I want to choose peace. I want to choose love. I want to choose compassion. I want to choose acceptance and empathy. And then someone's words change that. I think that says a lot more about you than it does about anybody else. And so there was another video that I saw recently on social media, and it was like, I think it was a Jocko Willink conversation. And he talks about, if somebody does something that bothers you, it's your fault, because it shows instantly a lack of grace, a lack of, forgiveness, a lack of, like I said, humility, understanding that we do the things that we get pissed off at other people. It's like somebody cuts you off in traffic and you go, oh, you motherfucker. Oh, you son of a bitch. I can't believe that guy would do that. And it's like, dude, we've done it. We've all done it. And if you won't even admit that, then that just shows the entire, complete lack of awareness of yourself. Because you might not have actually done the act. Maybe you're a perfect driver and a saint, and you haven't done the act of cutting somebody off in traffic, and you're not willing to admit that. but you have inconvenienced others in the past for your own benefit. And I think anyone that has, any shred of self-awareness can admit that they that they have inconvenienced somebody else for their own benefit. And by admitting that, being like, "Oh, I'm like that as well. I have a tendency to do that. I don't like that. I don't think it's right, but I've fallen down to that level as well." That gives you a lot more grace for other people around you as well, and it humanizes them. It makes you see them as what they are, a person, a human being, a flawed person, human being. And guess what? Unless somehow I'm talking to AI right now or a robot, or if you have a heartbeat, if you have breath right now, guess what? You're also a flawed human being. If you're listening to this, I'm assuming dogs aren't listening to this or anything like that, but maybe they are in the car if you're driving with your dog. So most of us listening are flawed human beings. And so I think that the more we can understand that other people out there are as well, and that it's probably not right to go around physically assaulting people, or even really reacting to people at all when they're saying things that hurt our feelings or hurt the feelings of those around us. It like I said, you can take that as an experience to notice, oh shit, that's a part of my trauma, a part of my life that I haven't dealt with yet. They said that thing and it really impacted me, and I believe it. Like, it's a big problem in my life. So this person just helped expose how I can improve. I feel like that's probably the most charitable and constructive way to view that. So on that note, hope you guys have a good week. I will check in with you next Monday. I think that's a beautiful place to wrap this up. Much love. Peace out. Love you all. Bye.